My family's dynamic underwent a significant change as a result of the significant promotion that my brother received. The house that our grandfather had left to me in his will was given to him by my parents without any comment from me. They provided him with the keys to my father's prized antique automobile and even transferred ownership of the firm to him. I found out about this treachery not through a chat with the person directly, but rather through a post on Instagram. The only thing that I got was a text message that read, "Hope you're surviving." It was completely empty. They finally contacted 1 week before the event that was being celebrated, but it was not to extend an invitation. Rather, it was to demand $900 as me contribution. My father yelled into my ear, "Either pay up or stay the hell away," when I became silent. Despite the fact that they were hostile, I continued to attend. The coldness in my mother's gaze caused her to pull me away. It is important that you do not make a scene with one of your episodes. Your shortcomings are not the topic of discussion this evening. The only thing that my father did was make a loud declaration, "Some people peek at nothing and remain there." He didn't even bother to make an attempt to greet me. Adding a smile to his face, my brother Chad said, "I guess they finally recognized who's worth investing in." I took a sip of their inexpensive beer, looked into each of their eyes, and then said in a calm voice, "Enjoy the fame. It does not continue on indefinitely." Following that, I left. After that, I made a stealthy move that resulted in them being financially devastated, their endeavors coming to a halt, and them pleading at my back door. As a result, here is how I first became suspicious that anything was inappropriate. On Instagram, Chad's girlfriend posted a post with the caption, "Congrats King," and tagged him in it. As if she were his personal public relations manager, she constantly highlighted his successes, which was not an unusual occurrence. The porch, the bricks, the old mailbox, and even the way the hydrangeas spilled over the wall all seemed out of place this time. However, the background had a strange appearance. My granddad lived there from time to time. Specifically, the house that he constructed with his own hands, the house that Dad left to me in his will, not just any house, but the house that I spent every summer growing up in, the one that he always claimed was, for the smart one, the one who thinks ahead. I was left with everything after Grandpa went away 5 years ago. It wasn't because he had a negative opinion of Chad. Rather, it was because he recognized something in me that my parents had never noticed before. Because he was certain that I would not waste it. He went so far as to place it in a trust, which meant that it could not be sold until I turned 30 or not without my express permission. I was 29 years old at the time. My mother and father had been in charge of managing the property as well as the tiny car repair company that was attached to it. They provided me with a small stipend from the revenues of the shop, which provided me with just enough money to cover my rent in the city. They were required to quit the residence and hand over the business in the event that I ever required it, as outlined under the trust. As well as this, I was aware that the will made it abundantly clear that upon my demise, the entire property, which includes the adjacent garage and company, was to be handed to my grandson, whose name is my name. This belongs to him as his inheritance. The attorney who was in charge of Grandpa's estate was the first person I got in touch with. A friend of my grandfather's, he was a sweet and elderly gentleman who was affectionate. In reference to the trust, I inquired of him whether there had been any advancements. He gave me his word that it was unbreakable. After that, I inquired about the piece of property. It was confirmed by him that the house would legally belong to me and not to my parents. I felt my heart sink. Grandpa's will had been disregarded on purpose by them. Over the course of 5 years, they had been keeping the majority of the shop's profits for themselves. That revenue, which would have been mine to begin with. I went online and visited the store's website. Not a single thing had changed. Subsequently, I became aware of a minor issue. The online registration of the company had been modified to include Chad as the new proprietor. Not only was this a betrayal, but it was also a form of illegal activity. Each of my parents and Chad were aware that the house was mine. They simply held the assumption that I would never discover the truth or that I would be too passive to fight back. Because of my reserved demeanor, they perceived me as weak. In the past, my father frequently referred to me as naive and soft. The go-getter and businessman, Chad, was always the subject of his unwavering support. Even if it meant treading on other people, Chad has a history of taking advantage of opportunities. On numerous occasions, He would borrow money and then forget to reimburse it. He was able to get away with his behavior because my parents were continually making excuses for it. I knew that they had a complete lack of respect for me when my father gave him the keys to his vintage car, which was the car that belonged to my grandfather. The following few days were spent with me wrapped up in a cloud of wrath and disbelief. One more time, I read the will. Not a doubt about it. I am the owner of the house, the business, and the automobile. They had been specifically designated for me by my grandfather for a long time. He was familiar with the tendencies of my family. In this very situation, he had anticipated it. On the following week, the celebration was held. It was a huge announcement of Chad's new position, but my parents had deceived me into thinking that it was a family celebration. My father sent me a text message asking $900 for party expenses. I received the contact. I understood it was a test, a means to exclude me or to make me feel like I was under someone's authority. I was sick and tired of being pushed around. On the day of the celebration, I came earlier than expected. I was greeted by my mother at the entrance, and her eyes furrowed in surprise. "Harrison, please refrain from beginning one of your dramatic antics. This evening is supposed to be about Chad's achievements, not your shortcomings." He continued by saying, "Some people peak at nothing and remain there." My father was standing close. All Chad did was smile at me when he was surrounded by sycophants and say, "I guess they finally figured out who's worth betting on." It was as if an icy determination had taken hold of me. I entered the living room, took a few deep breaths, and then sat down after walking past them. As I waited, I took their inexpensive beer, noticed their fake smiles, and accepted their offer. I wanted them to be aware that I was present, a silent witness to the fraud that they were undertaking. The big announcement started to be made. Chad was given the keys to his classic automobile and the deed to the house by my father, who was happy to announce that Chad would be taking over as the new leader of the family business. The applause that my mother gave was really enthusiastic. With a proud expression, Chad accepted the congratulations that were extended to him. He went so far as to give a speech in which he expressed his gratitude to his parents for believing in him and for providing him with the opportunity to build his empire. There was no way I could just sit there. After getting up, I moved closer to the middle of the room and waited for a brief period of silence. I was the target of my father's irritated gaze. "What exactly is it that you want, Harrison? Please don't cause a commotion." When I smiled, it was a genuine smile that was unnerving. "It's not that I'm trying to cause a commotion, Dad. The only reason I'm here is to observe. It is important to keep in mind that certain objects and properties have already been claimed by other people." The first thing I did was look at Chad, and then I looked at my parents. "Chad, that house is not yours," the speaker said. "That never happened. And that automobile, Dad, is registered to a different individual as well." There was a reverberation of whispering that spread across the guests. The appearance of my parents' features became pale. Chad's self-assured grin disappeared from his face. His tone was sneering, and he asked, "What are you talking about, you loser?" I stated, "I'm talking about Grandpa's will," with a voice that was calm and crisp. "The one who completely entrusted everything to me. It was the house, the business, and the automobile. I obtained a copy of the will that had been notarized and was in accordance with the law, and I displayed it. This property, along with everything that is located on it, is legally mine. Indeed, it has been for the past 5 years. By conducting my business and living in my house without permission, you have been breaking the law." All hell broke loose. It was my mother who screamed. When my father became angry, his features became distorted. Despite Chad's attempt to attack me, a number of the visitors were able to stop him. The words, "You can't do this," were yelled out by my father. "We're your family." I strongly answered, "Family does not steal from family," maintaining a steady tone throughout my response. "In the family, there is no abandonment or betrayal. You stole something that was not yours, and now I am going to give it back to you. It is all of it." Afterwards, I revealed the most shocking revelation possible, and I'm not just going to take it back. For every single penny of profit that you have made from my company over the course of the past 5 years, I am going to file a lawsuit against you. In addition to that, I will be reporting the fraudulent transfer of ownership to the appropriate authorities. They appeared to be in a state of both shock and dread on their features. Chad became really pale. He stuttered, "You wouldn't dare," as he looked at me. "Oh, I dare," I replied, my eyes set in a chilly manner. "It seems that you wanted to place your wager on the proper horse, Chad. On the other hand, you chose a weak one. You, as a parent, desire to have a family that provides support when it is needed? There is only one person left standing, and you are looking at them. Leaving them in the mess that they had created for themselves, I turned around and went away. It was impossible for me to turn around. What transpired was precisely what I had anticipated would happen. The lawsuit was submitted by me the next day. After witnessing their dishonesty, the attorney showed complete support for my position. Additionally, a judicial injunction was filed on the property, and the bank promptly froze the business accounts. The big promotion that Chad had been working toward turned out to be a financial disaster. As a result of his firm being established on stolen assets, it failed. In a matter of days, my parents could be seen at my apartment, pleading with me. They had lost everything they owned. Their savings, the property, and the business, which they had put into Chad's expansion, were all taken away. Both my mother and my father were crying uncontrollably, and my father's face was covered in sorrow. On the other side of them stood Chad, who appeared to be completely broken. "Harrison, please," my mother begged, her tears flowing down her cheeks. "Please. It is not a good idea. We are your entire family. We have committed an error. All we want is that you return the house to us. It will take some time, but we will repay you for everything." The words, "too late," came out of my mouth, and my tone was emotionless. "You have made your own decision. You went with Chad rather than me. Instead of honoring your family, you chose to be greedy and dishonest. And now you are going to have to deal with the repercussions." A low growl could be heard coming from my father as he took a step forward. "You will come to regret this. You will be alone yourself." "I've always been alone where you're concerned," I retorted in response to your statement. "However, I do not feel lonely. I am of a certain moral compass, and the legacy left by Grandpa, as opposed to you." I presented them with the paperwork that had been provided by my attorney, which was filled out thoroughly. The paperwork need to be signed. In addition to recognizing your debt for 5 years of stolen income, they return the property and the business to me in their entirety. Following the completion of the signing process, I will then submit the fraudulent transfer complaint to the appropriate authorities. They were hesitant, but there was no other choice available to them. They were in a confined space. Chad attempted to dispute with the other person about the car, claiming that he had put effort into it. "It doesn't matter," I conveyed to him in a straightforward manner. "It was never yours." He then stormed out to the car, which I had scheduled to be removed soon after he had slammed his fist into the doorframe, leaving a noticeable dent in the drywall. She signed despite the fact that her hand was shaking so fiercely that she almost dropped the pen. The final signature was made by my father, who hurled the pen at my feet. "I promise you that you will never again be a member of this family," he growled. I responded by saying, "That is not at all troublesome for me. So, that's that." Not only did I protect the house, but I also secured the car. I voluntarily paid the bank a check for the late earnings, which was provided to me by the bank after my attorney had completed the necessary documentation. Having no property to support it, Chad's business endeavor was doomed to fail, and failure was certain. I have not had a single word from any of my parents since they have chosen to sell their own home in order to pay off the debts that they have incurred. The chat room for the group is still inactive. I have been keeping it subdued. Although I am aware that some people would claim that I went too far, the truth is that I did what was required of me. There is a limit to how much maltreatment one may take before they decide to take revenge. The fact that they wanted me gone demonstrates that they have a genuine comprehension of what it is like to lose everything. Although I do not feel proud of myself, I also do not feel regret. I assume that this is the point at which I am supposed to declare that I have found closure or something along those lines, but I must say that I have not. I have regained what was properly mine, and I have no intention of going back on my decision. Your family may try to take advantage of you, but you should not give them permission to do so. There is always a preference for documentation. And if you are Chad and you are reading this, make sure you enjoy the bus travels.